For the first time since 2016, international hockey is back, and we've got some answers to some burning questions. Is Sidney Crosby the best player in the world still? Are Team USA the team to beat in this tournament? And is there any hope for Finland? All that and more coming up on this edition of the BarDown Podcast, presented by Crown Royal. We got the sick jersey back. It's good to be here talking international hockey with you boys. This is after the first two games of the tournament. So we've seen Canada beat Sweden 4-3 in overtime, and the U.S. just dismantle Finland 6-1 last night. And this is before the big Saturday night showdown between Canada and the U.S. We want to break down both games that we've seen because every team's played one game so far, so I think it's a good kind of starting point for this. Let's start with Canada-Sweden before we get to Canada-USA because we do want to preview that one. And how we're going to do this preview, actually, before I get there, how you guys feeling watching international hockey again? Because it's pretty electric.
Fired up, man.
So fired up. It's been incredible. First best on best international hockey since 2016. Let's go here. I remember going to some of those games at the World Cup of Hockey, but I don't know. Even this one has a more intense feeling to it. Maybe just because there's less teams. I don't want to say the World Cup of Hockey was gimmicky because obviously like the North America team was, a little different, but I don't know. There's a special feeling right now because it's been so long.
I think you couldn't have written up a better start to the tournament, maybe at least the first six or the first five periods. Because going into the third, like that USA-Finland game was good. It delivered, and Finland held their own. I know we're going to get into talking about it, everything, but your question off the top of like, is there any hope for Finland? It just felt like a dagger. It's like, man, they looked so good for two periods. But it's been a great tournament. I mean, I feel like everyone's wanted to see Crosby, McDavid, McKinnon just play together for so long now. But then there's also this hype about like, is Canada even the best team? And the States look
Chuck brothers playing together.
It's been great.
Ton of talent on display. We're going to get to Canada versus Sweden first. Obviously, the game of the tournament so far through two games, 4-3 overtime win for Team Canada. Mitch Marner, the OT winner in that one. How we wanted to kind of break these reactions down was one thing or one player that impressed you most and one thing or one player that you're concerned about going forward for all of these teams. Because there's a lot of hockey to play still. Canada, Sweden, and the U.S. could all finish with 2 wins, and Canada could be out because of a win in overtime instead of 2 wins in regulation. So those are the margins with this tournament because it's just round robin and it goes straight to the final. Let's start with Team Canada. Who impressed you? What impressed you most, Pac?
All right, we're starting with me. And I feel like my answer is a little bit more unconventional because I imagine we're going to talk about how great Sidney Crosby was.
I'll just say, I'll start.
Okay.
As long as I knew I wanted to take Crosby because I feel like he just needs to be addressed first. I mean, guy's an absolute horse. Comes back, 3 apples, just looks like honestly, it's crazy. You are watching this game, and obviously, like guys like McDavid, like the torch has been passed in the regular season in the NHL. Nathan McKinnon's so good, but then you just see Crosby out there doing his thing with the best on best talent, so composed, and you ask yourself, is Sidney Crosby still the best player in the world? And like, look at what Crosby's been able to do for some of his line mates. Like Rickard Rakell is having an unbelievable year this year. Not to take anything away from him, but is it a coincidence? He's playing with Crosby, isn't he? And, what if Crosby was playing with an unbelievable line mate in Pittsburgh? It feels like he just hasn't had great talent around him there for the past little while. And I don't know, is he like a 120, 130 point guy? Maybe I'm wrong, but he's just so steady, so good. And it bears the question, is Sid the best player in the world?
So I want to talk about the 3-on-3 overtime because they just went all out. McDavid, McKinnon, Makar, and it's like you got so much speed on the ice, and you can tell when those guys have the puck, like they pop off the screen. But that's not what got it done in overtime for Canada. And McKinnon was he kept charging and charging and charging at the defender. He was just taking guys on one-on-one. He was shooting the puck. It didn't work. He had some good chances, don't get me wrong. I'm not saying like, oh, Nathan McKinnon has to be better. He was great in the game. But I just find it almost like it's a great story when Crosby gets on the ice. And yeah, he's not as fast as these guys, and he's 37 years old. He's the oldest player in the tournament, but he almost just slows the game down. And who else is like stepping 1 foot over the blue line and then dropping the puck back 2 zones to Marner, who's now flying with so much speed. Like his IQ, his ability to just think the game on a higher level than everyone else has allowed his talent to continue to blossom even with age, because he's getting older and he's starting to, I guess, get a little slower, but it just seems when you watch him, it doesn't matter. He looks like he's 25 out there. He's so strong on the puck too.
So smart.
Yeah.
I was just going to say, on that second goal, you saw like a bit of a burst of speed though, and the protection of the puck against the defense. I think it was Forsling or Ekholm. I forget who it was on Sweden's defense, but just he backed into him, like had a step on him initially, backed into him, used his body to protect the puck, and then just dished a perfect pass off to Stone for the one-timer. But he got so deep in the zone, and it's one of those things where, I don't know if you guys have noticed this, everyone seems faster in this tournament to me, and you can tell who the slower players are like immediately. They just stick out. We'll get to Finland in a bit, but Crosby doesn't stick out even with his age as like a slower player. Like he still has a bit of that burst to get it done, which has just been so impressive to watch. And obviously his chemistry with McKinnon was just something I think everyone was excited to see, and it lived up to the hype and maybe even then some. Even
that pass to Stone, like, was so nice. It's like guy's got eyes on the back of his head. Should I say what I am worried about, or should we?
No, we'll stick with impressed first. Okay. So we talked about Crosby, and I mean he was Canada's best player, one player of the game, obviously, rightly so. So I think that is the perfect place to start, and I think the argument for him being still one of like the 3-4 best players in hockey is very much alive and well, based on an international best on best tournament where he is Canada's best player given all the talent that they have.
Get him out of Pittsburgh.
Not this.
Get him out.
Avs fans that were maybe on the fence about like what Crosby could still bring to a team at this point, where I saw it on Twitter afterwards just being like, yep, trade for him, give up everything, because like this guy is still incredible.
Give up the house. Looking back, would you have like maybe given up Rantanen in a deal for Crosby? I don't know.
He's not going anywhere. What? He's not going anywhere.
Yeah. Rantanen might be on the move again, though. Who knows?
Crazy.
Yeah.
What do you got for your most impressive?
So obviously we just talked about Crosby, and McKinnon and McDavid I feel like are in that same breath. You turn on the TV, you open Twitter, Instagram, you're going to hear about how great these guys were and how much of a joy they were to watch. One of the reasons I'm feeling very optimistic about Canada, though, and this might be a little bit controversial because these two players took some heat. They're kind of being called like nepotism picks. They were on the ice a lot in late game situations. Brandon Hagel and Anthony Cirelli. I actually thought they were pretty solid, specifically Brandon Hagel, and I think he adds an element of like power and grit while also still being a pretty good offensive goal scorer to this team, that on the fourth line, and then when you look in key situations in the penalty kill with 2 minutes left in a tie game, they even got some time on 3-on-3. They're so responsible, they're so steady, and clearly Cooper trusts these guys. And in a tournament where you don't have time to figure things out, you don't have time to say, let me try this player on in this situation, because he has that familiarity with these players, and because they're both so well-rounded guys. I actually really like their play. I think on the fourth line they can be very, very good. And they can play in these key situations. These aren't guys who, they're on Team Canada, they're on the fourth line, you're going to play 7 minutes a night because the team's so loaded. I was really happy with the complete depth of Canada's forward group, specifically with the performance of Brandon Hagel mostly.
It's funny because my concern is actually the fourth line for Team Canada.
I don't think that they were bad.
I think when you're nitpicking, like there aren't that many concerns necessarily, at least from one game. I just think that you look at the fourth line, they didn't really play that many minutes, and they were still -2. They were on for 2 goals. And I'm also thinking, I think one of my friends said to me, those guys were getting shifts in overtime before Crosby was.
Yeah.
And I'm like, why? It makes no sense.
In 10 minutes 3-on-3, you can't just roll 2 lines.
But why? But why are those guys going out before Crosby?
No, they weren't before, but they had there was a stretch where it was McDavid, McKinnon, and then those guys went out, and then Crosby went out. But to start the overtime, it wasn't like that. Crosby got it first.
Yeah, I just think and I like Cirelli and I like Hagel. I just think after one game, you can only nitpick at so many things. And I think the fact that line did not play that many minutes and they were on for 2 goals is a little concerning as a Canadian fan. You're you have to kind of hold your breath a little when they're out there.
I think if anything, and this kind of gets into my concern more, I think the fact that they're already two defensemen down, and maybe their two best defensemen, not like Cale Makar best, but well-rounded guys like Pietrangelo and Theodore, big bodies. That's to me my biggest concern.
We can't all pick. We can't all pick the same concern. Okay, we had a little talk about it. But yeah, again, like I think that they'll be fine, and the injuries, of course, are a big concern. But it kind of just makes you realize, like, Canada did leave some pretty good talent at home, and it makes you think, like, should a guy like Hyman have been on the team, or a guy like Scheifele been on the team? And I don't know, just get you thinking.
For sure. And I think it's interesting because, like you said, I think the positive of it with Cooper having familiarity with those guys is he knows what to expect of them in certain situations. Yeah. But then the negative of it is the talent level of those guys compared to, like you said, some of the guys you left at home. Maybe you do want a little more out of them. And maybe that trust is actually like it's a blind trust where it's like too much into these guys where maybe you should be playing other guys more or putting other guys in different situations. But because he's familiar with them, maybe that's the first call he's making in those situations to get those guys out there on the ice. Again, one game, so like small sample size for it. And
they're going to go out and they're going
to against the U.S., like they're just going to have a couple gritty shifts.
I'm telling you, Brandon Hagel is a guy you want on your team.
He's good, man, for sure. I didn't think Cirelli looked particularly good in that.
Yeah, he's from Vaughan though, so I had to throw him in there with the couple. It's mostly about Hagel, but I'm like, Cirelli, Woodbridge boy, throw him in.
I'll throw in my most impressive, and I think we talked about McDavid. He was just every time he touched the puck, he just felt different. It felt like watching those World Junior teams that he was on again, where like every time he touched the puck, you're just like something amazing is gonna happen. And he didn't do it as far as like the production side of it, like on the scoreboard, nothing kind of counted for it. I saw a lot of people saying like I don't think they were happy with the fit with Marner particularly, but I didn't think it was as bad as people were making it out to be. I thought that line was buzzing, and
I thought. Sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good.
I thought Marner did not look great in the first two periods, but he really picked it up in the third period. Made like that really nice backdoor pass to McDavid, who found Taves in the slot for that crazy Gustafsson save. Mm-hmm. And then obviously he scored the goal. So that was a really big goal for Mitch Marner's confidence, and like call it crazy, but like that's a goal that, like, if I'm a Leafs fan, I'm like, he's got to ride that into the playoffs and, like, taking on the big moment. Like, there's a lot to be said about scoring a clutch goal like that, and I feel like Mitch needed that.
I don't disagree, especially seeing the discourse online after the third period and before overtime of like how Mitch was invisible, which again, I don't particularly agree that he was invisible all game long. I think that line built chemistry and confidence throughout the game, and I just think McDavid can anchor anybody, so like there is room for John Cooper to play around with it if he's not particularly satisfied with the output that he's getting from those guys, but I don't think it was as bad as people were kind of making it out to be. But McDavid was impressive beyond belief. Yeah. Like it wasn't a surprise to just see him, like some of the moves he was trying in the first period particularly were like between the legs and passing out in the slot, and just like if that finds a stick, we're having a completely different conversation for that line in particular. So I think he's really good. We touched on concerns, so we touched on your concern. My concern was also defense, and like Shea Theodore being hurt was huge. Alex Pietrangelo declining, I guess, at the last second for whatever reason was massive. I think that when you look at these pairings, keeping Makar and Taves together was, I think, is goal number one. Like, they were the best pair that Canada had beyond belief. I really feel bad for a guy like Josh Morrissey, honestly, because I think Parayko stood out pretty badly in like a bad way. And I think I looked at the expected goals for and against, and Parayko and Morrissey had the worst expected goals against as a pair out of anyone. And
I did think Morrissey looked good, though.
I think he looked good. Yeah. I think Parayko, and we talked about like the speed and noticing guys that can't keep up. Yeah. I think Drew Doughty also fell in that category a little, where he just looked like he was a step behind. Like Lucas Raymond in puck battles won a couple big ones against him that led to a goal. It really makes me question not bringing one more offensive guy like an Evan Bouchard.
And even
Or
the
a Noah
guy that
Dobson.
they've now called on standby. I mean, Thomas Harley has some offensive upside to his game, but it just
Yeah.
feels like
It's just-
how deep down were these guys?
Guys, Owen Power should have gone.
Oh, if Z was here, his head would explode right now.
It is interesting though that Harley was the guy that
Yeah.
made the call.
100%.
Well, maybe like Bouchard's in like Turks and Caicos, and he's like, there's no flights back.
He's like, screw it.
You guys have fun, truly. But I think it is worrisome for Canada a little bit in the sense that your best pair was obviously Taves and Makar, but there's a lot to be desired by the four other, maybe three, because I think Josh Morrissey was good. The three other defensemen didn't give you a whole lot, and especially when you went down to 5 and you were mixing in pairs, you could see the chemistry wasn't there with these guys when Makar had to play with someone else, when Taves had to play with someone else.
Oh, yeah.
So they're not going to have that this game with the U.S., but at the same time, I don't think you can still rely on Makar and Taves playing like 28 minutes a night for this entire tournament because you're trying to shield other guys. It's just not going to work, I don't think, in your favor.
Like, I remember thinking, like, before the Harley thing happened, if there was another injury, like, would Marner have had to play D? Like what would?
Yeah.
It's so bizarre, but it's good that they're allowing someone to like come in, another defenseman to come in, because it's like, why wouldn't you let that happen?
For sure.
I don't know. So yeah. Also, just want to say before we move on from Canada, I know we were hard on the.
I haven't given my opinion, but you guys said you were hard on it. I like the jerseys.
I had them at second, so it's just you and Z.
Hot take. This might be my favorite jersey in the tournament. This is honestly one of my like out of Canada jerseys, maybe one of my favorite. Like,
Yeah.
at first I was very skeptical, but if you actually look at the detail on this jersey, like the pattern that goes across with the leaves and the beige coloring and the whatever this is called coming out
Spine?
of it. Yeah.
Stencil.
Yeah.
Stems?
It's a beautiful jersey. I don't know. I think it's really cool. At first I thought it'd be something that a beaver would wear on a gas station for a tourist on the side of a Trans-Canada highway, but you know what? It's really grown on me.
You know what? If a beaver was wearing that, he'd look cool.
He would.
Best looking beaver out there,
Good
I
looking
think.
beaver.
He'd be looking damn good.
Good looking beaver.
You guys get it? Beaver.
Oh,
damn.
wow. That's nice.
Not
That's
bad.
nice.
Well played.
We'll cut that out.
Look in the camera for that one next time. Look straight down the barrel.
Holy smokes.
Let's move on to Sweden. Most impressive for you guys in the 4-3 loss.
I think Philip Gustafsson is an easy candidate to go to here. I'm sure you guys want to give him some love too. I'm going to talk about, is it Joel or Yoel Erikssonek?
Yeah.
From Minnesota Wild centerman. Him starting overtime, winning the draw, and then Sweden just possessing the puck for like the first minute and 30 seconds when you're going up against Makar, McDavid, McKinnon. I thought that was pretty impressive, and I feel like that's kind of Sweden's identity. They're so strong on the back end. A lot of their D really popped off the screen as well and looked really good, but I feel like they can shut you down and make things very, very difficult. Canada, as good as they looked at times, they didn't get a lot of shots.
Yep.
The big chances that they did get, Gustafsson was always positioned well, but it was very, very tough to get those chances. Sweden also only took one penalty. So I feel like the defensive game as a whole that they played was really well, and I think someone like Joel Erikssonek, a shutdown centerman who can really match up against anyone, and I think because Minnesota doesn't often get a lot of national attention in the NHL media, he's someone who's really slept on, and I thought he looked great in game one.
First of all, it's Joel Erikssonek.
I was thinking it's Yoel because it's Yoel Armia. So.
For all the people who are so offended by the fact that I've said that I have a Swedish girlfriend, you suck. Anyways, I do agree, though, when we have these conversations about the most underrated players in the league. I genuinely think he's got to be up there. Like, he's so good defensively. Yeah. He's good offensively. That whole line, I was almost going to say that whole line. Like, Erikssonek, Raymond, and I thought Jesper Bratt looked really good that game. I was seeing, like, this is supposed to be the third line. That was Sweden's best line, in my opinion, like without a doubt. They were getting it done for them. Actually, I should say, Kempe looked incredible as well. But I think for me, I'm going to go with Victor Hedman. Hedman logged in almost 30 minutes quietly. I don't think anyone even realized it. And McDavid looked incredible, but also only had an assist on power play. Like, I thought Hedman did a really solid job against Canada's top players that game, and he's still one of the best, and he's, in my opinion, he's one of the best defensemen of all time.
Hedman, Bratt, Gustafsson, all good shouts for sure as far as guys that are impressive. I think Lucas Raymond, player of the game for Sweden, then second star that we mentioned. 2 assists, and he just felt like he earned more minutes along as the game kind of went along. Even Ricard Raquel was a guy that I think we talked about. Pretty impressive for a guy that was just called into the team basically. Was that what happened with him? He wasn't selected initially, right? He wasn't selected initially, and he fit in and looked like one of the most dangerous players for them. And I know we're going to get to our disappointments when it comes to dangerous players on Sweden. My impressive guy was Erik Karlsson, played third pair minutes. And when he was on the ice was tilted in Sweden's favor more times than not. I think when you're not asking Erik Karlsson to be a number 1 defenseman, and I think this is kind of going into the trade deadline, a really good audition for NHL teams that are like, okay, we want to bring him in as a complementary piece for a playoff run. He's showing you what he could be as a complementary piece to the best, I think, D unit in the tournament. I think we talked about that going in, is that Sweden's house is built back there, and they looked outstanding back there. So I wouldn't be surprised if they beat the U.S., if they rattle off 2 wins here and make it to the championship, just because they have so much depth there, and Karlsson's a big part of it. Disappointments now for Team Sweden.
Just didn't feel like they had those game breakers. Yeah. Where we talked about, defense being how they're built and their identity. It's almost like as soon as it got to 3-on-3, they almost embraced that too much. And not to say that they played not to lose, but I never felt like, oh my gosh, this player has the puck, watch out, Canada's in danger, Canada's on their heels. They pressed at times, and they made things difficult. This is not to say that, Canada rolled them over. That's just not what happened. But they, to me, lack that true firepower that I think both Canada and the U.S. have, where it never really felt like, when it gets to 3-on-3 and Makar, McKinnon, and McDavid are on the ice, where Sweden's really going to rival them there. I feel like that might be a little bit too harsh, because they played a great game. But that's just my concern kind of going forward. Well, the top 6, really.
Some of their players played a great game. Some of them did not. And I think someone who deserves to shoulder a lot of criticism for that in that game was William Nylander. This guy played more minutes than anyone on forward. Did not look good. Even in overtime, I get he had some opportunities. Couldn't bury. This is the second highest goal scorer in the league. Didn't look like it at all in this game. They're going to need more from him specifically if they're going to start winning games, because he should be the difference maker, at least on forward. Also thought Mika Zibanejad did not look good that game, and he fanned on that one cross-ice pass. That should have been a goal, honestly, and he put it on the ground. These are the top line guys for Sweden. They just were invisible to me.
I think Elias Pettersson should be in that conversation as well. Didn't record a shot on goal at 5-on-5 in this game. I think that when the margins like this, when you're talking about a best on best tournament, your best players need to be your best. We can't be talking about Ricard Raquel, Lucas Raymond, and Jesper Bratt being the best players, best forwards for Sweden in this tournament if they have a chance of winning, because as good as those guys are, and you want that depth to kind of flourish, it won't matter if Nylander, Pettersson, Zibanejad, even Kempe, and Kempe had a really strong game. I also think that this game, Binnington led in a couple soft ones, and they are a little fortunate that it even went to overtime. Kempe's goal, I think, is a perfect example of that, where Binnington probably wants that one back 100 times out of 100.
It was kind of a laser of a shot, but just where it was placed. Yeah,
where it was placed. It was a hard shot for sure. Where it was placed though, Marner's overtime shot, I think, is placed better than Kempe's shot from farther out.
Marner's shot was a nice shot.
Yeah.
Holy smokes.
So I think the criticisms are fair for Sweden's top players so far through one game, and we'll see. Finland might be a perfect way to get some momentum for those guys.
Don't sleep on the Finns. Don't sleep on them.
We said don't sleep on the Finns going in, and USA didn't sleep on them, and they beat them 6-1. So we're gonna
1,000% sleeping on them.
We're gonna keep sleeping on them. Who impressed you guys most, Jesse? We'll start with you for Team USA in this 6-1 win.
You know what? I know the Kachuk brothers are gonna get some love. I'll let someone else go into the Kachuk bros. You only had one assist, but I thought Austin Matthews looked outstanding last night. Like, I'm watching this guy, and I'm kind of curious to see, he plays with Marner so much in Toronto against weaker talent than what we see in the tournament. And this guy just takes the puck. He's so fast with it. He just skates through people. Him and Hughes had incredible chemistry together. In my opinion, he's hands down the most skilled player on the U.S., and we saw it last night. And he didn't really need to score that many goals. I know it sounds weird to say, and obviously the Kachuk brothers are going to get a lot of love, but I think when push comes to shove in a game against Canada tomorrow, Matthews is going to really stand out, against really top end talent. I thought he just proved, I'm oh my God, this guy's unbelievable.
Hit that crossbar early in the game too.
Yep.
Oh my God,
Nice shot.
smoked it
Yeah,
on that.
so-
Did Hughes give him that?
I think
That
so.
one? Yeah.
Yeah.
They were so much fun to watch together.
I'll talk about the Kachuk bros. Yeah, they got 4 goals combined, which is nice. But why I really love them was they were just throwing their bodies around like crazy. And I feel like when you have so much skill and then you still have players that can do that. And I mean, I don't have to explain to people why the Kachuk brothers are so good. Everyone knows what makes them so special. But they were so physical. They were chirping, they were getting in the game, and I feel like there was this small crowd leading into the tournament that was like, oh, the players aren't going to care that much. It's an all-star break. It's a fancy all-star break. You tell Brady and Matthew Tkachuk that this is an all-star break and that this doesn't matter. They talked about how they've been waiting their entire lives to play for their country and to play together. It's such a great story. The fact that they score 4 goals combined in their first game, and there's a million highlights of them just laying people out. So the Kachuk brothers are going to be a handful for Canada tomorrow, especially that they're shorthanded on D.
Yeah, this game felt very different from the Canada-Sweden game in the sense of the physicality early on. Brady was in a scrum in front of the net 2 minutes in, and you're like, oh, okay, this is this USA team where they can beat you up, but also have so much skill that they can play any which way no matter what kind of game and team you're playing against. They can take it to you physically and they can skill you up 100% of the time. And they just looked amazing. Jack Hughes was my guy. I felt like he looked a little bit like McDavid in the sense of whenever he got the puck, I just felt like something special was going to happen. It seemed like he had an extra burst in his step. Granted, I don't watch a ton of New Jersey Devils games, and this might be just how he looks all the time, which I wouldn't be surprised at. But seeing him play with a guy like Austin Matthews, they were the only line that played over 10 minutes for the States because they were trying some stuff out with other lines. The Kachucks and Eichel didn't play the entire game together. They were split up at one point, and when they put them together, obviously really great things happened. But the USA was going with that Gensel, Matthews, Hughes line throughout, and it looked incredible. And I think it's a testament to all 3 of those players, but how quickly they've gelled. And Hughes is a big part of that, the playmaker on that line for 2 great goal scorers like Gensel and Matthews. Most disappointing for the USA. Not a lot to talk about, but maybe something that's concerning, I guess, something you want to watch going forward.
There's such, again, after one game, there's such little stuff to nitpick.
Especially when you win 6-1.
Yeah, I mean, I guess the only thing you can really say about the game is that Finland's goal was pretty weak.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
And I know that there's concern, I think I saw PK Subban say, just get pucks on Hellebuck.
Yeah, that was kind of ridiculous.
I'm like, PK, relax. That guy's take sometimes. I'm sorry. Not that I have amazing takes, but I'm like, you need to chill out, man. There's concerns about Hellebuck and nerves and how he's played in the playoffs for the Jets. I know they showed stats last night about Helly's playoff numbers, but after that, he really calmed down. I think his save percentage was over 95% afterwards. So that would be my one concern is that you don't want to see those goals in this kind of tournament, but I don't think it's really a concern. It was just such a dominant win by the U.S. I also thought that Matt Boldy and Zach Werenski looked great last night, by the way.
I agree.
And Brock Faber. And everyone.
Again, it's really tough to talk about what might be concerning for this team going forward, but if you have something.
I don't have anything. I feel like I would really have to nitpick. And even though it was close going into the third, I think that's more of a compliment to the strong game that Finland was playing. I just thought the U.S. played a solid game. I think they got a little bit fortunate with momentum to start the third period, 2 goals in 9 seconds or whatever it is. That's an absolute backbreaker. But yeah, they're playing against a good team too. So just because it was close that's no indictment on the States got to be better. They were good. I'm not going to go after anyone and say this is a big concern for me.
Yeah. If you're really trying to nitpick, could you have wanted to see maybe a little more from Kyle Connor or Dylan Larkin in a game
Yeah,
like last
yeah.
night, potentially? And does it make you question not putting a guy like maybe Cole Caulfield instead of a Dylan Larkin? Yeah, maybe, but like again, it's your third and fourth lines that maybe aren't impressing you as much in a 6-1 win.
Not
I
all
don't-
12 forwards are going to be standout
Exactly.
guys.
You
in the
have to
game.
play
Yeah.
different roles in this tournament and take a back seat offensively sometimes because you've got such talent up front. So that's okay. And that's going to kind of be the case sometimes in this tournament.
I think what's interesting too is like you're almost getting a look at what these guys will look like in the playoffs. And I think like, man, Brady Tkachuk in the playoffs is going to be
Imagine if they play the Leafs
electric.
in the
It's going
first
to be a
round.
menace.
Oh my
He's going to
goodness.
have Marner with his jersey over his head and a headlock within 30 seconds of the first playoff game.
Man, like
Probably.
And Scotiabank Arena won't even be on their feet because the atmosphere sucks.
yeah.
Wow. Shots fired.
Shots fired.
Let's fire some more shots at Finland here. Not like Saros needed any more fired at him last night in the game, but
That was good.
here we go. Let's start with most impressive for Finland. Where do you want to start?
I actually thought Finland played pretty solid for at least their forwards and defensemen for the first 2.5 periods until the game really blew itself open. But I just feel like they have this kind of shut down identity where, especially up front in their forwards, they're difficult to play against. And yeah,
Big. That first line's
Yeah.
really big, right? Barkov,
Rantanen, Lehkonen. I thought that was maybe this is the most impressive for all of us, but that was their obvious best line by far. Only time they felt like they generated any kind of zone time and pressure was like those two big bodies of Barkov and Rantanen going to work and Lehkonen retrieving pucks. And
Yeah.
that is
That's it.
their offense. But other than that, it didn't feel like they had anything to go to.
Yeah.
they're tough in the corners. Like I feel like they made it tough for the States to generate like a crazy amount of chances early in the game at least. And then as the game went on and on, you started to see the US's talent like really pull away.
Yeah.
But I don't know. I feel like they can have teams on upset alert. I don't know. They need some better performance
They
in the
can have
back.
teams on upset alert, but they're clearly at a disadvantage after losing Heiskanen and even like Ristolainen for Finland in this tournament. That's a huge loss.
The fact that they're rolling, and this will kind of get into my concern, like the 5 forwards on the power play, there's a lot of talent on the ice. It just didn't really seem to work all that great.
Yeah.
But we can get into that after.
One positive I'll take away for Finland, one player that I thought looked actually pretty good last night that people seem to forget is still even in the league, I feel, is Olli Mata. What's the Mata? I thought he was pretty impressive last night. Logged in 20 minutes, had an apple. Thought he was steady. And kind of just reminded me, like, he won his cups with Pittsburgh at such a young age. And
Yeah.
he's still in the league. He's really not that old of a player.
He was a first-round pick, too.
Man, he looked good.
Yeah.
Like, he was good for them last night. So that was my positive.
Rantanen and Barkov was my positive. I think negative, if we want to talk about disappointments, it's tough because I think the defenseman problem is a real one, and them not being able to use international players that don't play in the NHL to supplement their roster right now gives them a big disadvantage in this case for sure. I think it's fair to be disappointed by the Sebastian Aho, Patrick Laine line. In general, it was Laine, Aho, Hintz, and
Hintz didn't look very good last night.
they as a whole just didn't look good. They didn't generate anything. They didn't produce anything. And for players as talented as those three are, you expect a lot more from them if Finland is going to do any kind of upset alerting anything. But they were bad. They were truly, really, really bad. Most expected goals against of any line for Finland last night.
I can't say that I'm all that surprised in how Laine looked yesterday. I watch him.
I'm not surprised
and
at how he looked, but I thought maybe him playing with Aho again, playing for his country again, there might be something different because that seems to spark something in guys. And
Yeah, for sure.
It just didn't.
seems like the pace of play that he plays at is for in a tournament like this where the hockey's going to be uber fast.
it's so fast.
Yeah, he just looked like he had cement boots out there. And then even on the power play when it's kind of his domain, they had him set up in Ovi's office. He got a couple one-timers off, but then he was a little too slow with the puck. His passes weren't all that crisp. Like, I don't know. Yeah, I understand the excitement, playing with Aho again, playing in the Bell Center, Montreal crowd trying to get him going. It was a tough game, I thought.
Yeah.
But that's kind of how he is as a player now. He's a power play guy. He's got a great shot. He doesn't really drive play like he used to, his first couple years in the Jets. Doesn't do that anymore.
He's slow. And a competition like this, like he's going to noticeably stand out for being slow. My concern, there's a lot of concerns with Finland right now. I'm going with Saros. Like, I just goaltending in general, and the nice thing is that you have options, but even like Lankinen is good. Don't get me wrong. Good goalie, but, I'm kind of thinking, like, is he going to be that much better than Saros? With that said, they said it last night, Saros has not been good heading into this tournament. I mean, three of his last 5 games, he's had a GAA of over 4. Listen, in 4 of his last 6 games, his GAAs were 12.00, 5.43, 4.07, and 6.05. And 2 of them he had 2.05 and 2.04, which is good. But that is inconsistent. That's not good. He has not been good lately. And in a tournament where Finland is already hurt on defense, they're not going to be able to get that much offense. You need to lean on your goaltending. And he blew it in the third.
I don't know what kind of idiot ranked him as the 3rd best goalie going into the tournament.
Is that this guy?
Yeah.
Who'd you rank him over? Gustafsson?
Did I have Gustafsson 3? I can't remember. I ranked Gustafsson over Allmark, but I would have had Allmark had both of them had he been healthy.
I wonder if Sweden will go to try Allmark.
I wonder too.
I thought Gustafsson was awesome though.
Yeah.
I thought he was too, but yeah, in a tournament that is so quick, like it's tough. And I wonder the same about Canada. We didn't really talk about the goaltending situation, but we're gonna do that now. And a quick don't think, just tweet.
Ooh, I don't know about this.
Don't think, just tweet to both of you. Who would you start in net for Team Canada in game number 2 against the U.S.?
I think I would go with Binnington again. If it was Finland, maybe I'd try Aiden Hill. This game just feels like there's too much at stake, where if you go with Aiden Hill and, he lets in a couple soft ones, now it's like, why are you changing what... It worked. Like, yeah, maybe that Kempe goal, he could have done better, but Binnington's a cup-winning goalie. So is Aiden Hill. But Binnington, to me, his career, he's played well in big, big moments. So he was in there game 1. After he let in the 3rd goal in the back half of the game and in overtime, he made some good saves, and they relied on him. So I would keep him in net.
I think I agree. If Hill comes in and he has a good game, or like there are questions, you're kind of wondering like into the next games, like what do we do here? Who's the goalie? It's such a short tournament. I think until Binnington proves otherwise, you keep riding with him. But I definitely see the argument with starting Hill to just say, hey, we're still in the round robin stage. Let's just see what we have right now.
Mm-hmm. Or Montembeault.
No.
I don't think he's going to get consideration. I think if Canada had to do it again, you're obviously talking about Logan Thompson and Mackenzie Blackwood easily being on this team, and Blackwood probably being the starter given how he's played for Colorado. But Thompson could obviously make an argument. So I think if Canada does lose and the goaltending is a big disappointment,
they go to hell.
We'll see. We'll see. It's an interesting one. I know we want to tee up USA Canada. We're going to do that right now, just very quickly. And I'll do it like this: Canada, USA, quick prediction, and maybe who your player of the game is.
I think it's going to be a low-scoring battle. I know there's so much talent on the ice, but I think it's going to be hard to score on both these teams. I'm going to say 3-2 Canada. Player of the game, Brandon Hagel.
That's a hot take.
He scores. He scores a 3rd goal to win it with 3 minutes left. Why is he on the ice with 3 minutes left? Because he's Cooper's guy and he's responsible.
I'm going to go 3-2 U.S. tomorrow night, and I'm going to say Jack Eichel's the player of the game.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay, I like it. I'm going to go 5-3 for the U.S. I think that this goes one of two ways in my mind. It's that Canada's defensive core outside of Makar and Taves gets a little exposed, and so does Jordan Binnington. Or somehow you get an all-star performance from that group, and maybe it's 5-3 the other way. But I'm going to go 5-3 US. I want a bit of an upset in the round robin here, and I think that let's go with Jack Hughes being the player of the game.
Love it. I was thinking of taking him too. I'm actually going to go 4-2 because I'm thinking about the goaltending, and I think that the US is they're going to pot some tomorrow.
They've got the advantage in net. That's what we've talked about with this team for the entire lead up to this tournament is they've got the 3 best goalies in the entire tournament, probably.
I've had it with the negativity at this table. I'm changing my pick. 6-3 Canada. Crosby, player of the game. 6 goals for Crosby.
Hey, and
Come on!
You know what? Huge game for Hellebuck tomorrow. Like, this is kind of like a let's see what you're made of. Like, not let's see what you're made of, because obviously he's about to win his 3rd Vezina and maybe the Hart, but like, Helly, biggest game, arguably one of the biggest games of your career. Let's see what you're made out of. And I just want to say one other thing. Best on best, Canada versus the USA for the first time in almost 10 years. Are you jabbing me? Like, let's go. Like, let's go.
If you're not fired up for this one, check your pulse.
Check your pulse.
'Cause you're probably dead if you're not fired up for this one. Last thing we got to do before we get out of here, that deserves a crown. For me, it's Sidney Crosby.
Yeah,
just the performance from him in game 1, 3 assists. The Marner one was really fun, and like Marchand was chirping him after the game a little bit. He's just like, oh, drop past the entire end of the ice and then he's like, you just did a little dipsy-do in the corner and just made it onside. Like, I love Marchand and just his...
that was risky, 8-7.
It was risky, but like that guy, the 3 assists that he had, like someone's got to be buying him dinner after that because those were all ridiculous assists.
Ridiculous. The first one, like a minute into the game, it's like, oh, okay.
No look.
We're back.
Yeah. We are so back. This guy might be the best player in the world still. Sidney Crosby deserves a crown.
Never lost the crown.
Never lost the crown. Wow. There we go. For those wondering, we're not going to have a podcast Saturday after the game. We're going to talk about the rest of the round robin on Tuesday and tee up the championship game, which is Thursday of next week. And then we're still toying with the idea of if we're going to go live during the championship game. Depends. Maybe it's a USA Canada game. I think we probably all watch it in here together, like we did with Jets Avs. That one game we watched.
Let's not bring that up again.
Hey,
we're all on the same team.
At least this time we're all on the same team and we're all cheering for the same squad. Hopefully, unless it's like a Canada or a US Sweden final rather. And
Still hard of hearing from that night.
that was a good night. So we're still toying with that idea. But if you're really interested in that, let us know in the comments. And if you haven't already, like and subscribe and tell us who's going to win the tournament.
Let's go, Canada.